What's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. It's Brittany here with another video to help you guys live a happy, healthy, awesome life in a wheelchair. And today I am answering some questions that I got over the last few videos about poop, farts, all that kind of stuff, because we've been talking about poop for 3 videos now and inevitably questions come up about those things. So I'm going to answer some of those questions today. Normally my videos are geared towards people with disabilities. And I suppose this one could be geared towards somebody that is newly injured that might be fearful about what life is going to look like with a neurogenic bowel and, you know, what farting looks like and all of that stuff. But this is mostly for people that are able-bodied, that are curious, I'm expecting. So here we go. I have, I don't know, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions, I think, that I got. So we're just going to answer them. And the first question is, do you fart? And the answer to that question is yes. Of course I fart. Everybody farts, and you create gas when you digest food. But I don't fart very often when I'm sitting in my wheelchair because I'm sitting on my butthole, and it's hard for you to fart when you're sitting on your butthole. There is like a reason that people, you know, like lift their cheek to fart and all that stuff, which I don't do very often. So sometimes I fart if I'm moving, which is not very often. But I tend to fart when I lay down to go to bed. And if I'm really uncomfortable, like I've eaten something that's given me lots of gas, I'll purposely lay down so I can fart. And then the question I got that follows this, if you can fart, are you afraid that when you do fart, you're going to poop? Because a lot of times poop follows farts. And at first I was really afraid of this because, you know, when you're first paralyzed, you can be inconsistent with your bowels, and you can have incontinence. And so I was really afraid when I farted that I was going to poop. And so sometimes I would go sit on the toilet and it would freak me out. But I've been paralyzed for 25 years and I'm pretty confident now that when I fart, it's just a fart. And even when there is like stool in the bottom of like right in my rectum, like ready to come out, it doesn't normally come out. Sometimes when I go to do my bowel routine and I put my suppository in, there is stool there, like just waiting sort of to come out. But I don't have an accident or anything. So my rectum is usually pretty like, you know, tight, and it just, or my anus, not my rectum. My anus is usually pretty tight. My butthole is pretty tight. Unless it's letting air out, and it doesn't usually let any poop out when that happens. So I haven't had an accident, knock on wood, in a really long time, like years and years and years. So I'm pretty confident just from, you know, experience and realizing that I'm not having accidents when I fart, that it's just gas, even if there is stool there. So yeah, I fart, and I am not usually afraid when I fart that I'm going to have an accident or that I'm going to be incontinent. Okay, the next question is related to farts too. If you smell a fart when you're like out somewhere or with people, how do you know it's not you? And this one is kind of a funny one. I always say that when you're first paralyzed, you never trust a fart. And it's because you never really know if it's you. And if you're not sure if you farted, then there's a whole, like, you know, host of things that you do in order to try and find out if the fart was you. I typically like stick my hand under my butt, bring it up and smell it, which is gross, but reality. Just because I want to see if it's actually me. I'll sometimes do some pressure lifts to see if like there's any weird smells wafting up from down there. Those are typically the things that I do. And then if I'm, you know, really unsure, I might go lay down on my bed or get on the toilet and actually check with a gloved hand inside to see if there's any poop or anything. But I don't do that very often unless I'm sick, which brings me to the next question. If you have the flu or a stomach bug or something like that would typically give people stomach cramping and diarrhea, do you get the same thing when you're paralyzed? And the answer is yes, sort of. It would really depend on where you're paralyzed, how much you can feel of the cramping and all of that stuff. But for me, I have pretty decent sensation of my abdomen inside, not the skin. I can't feel the outside skin of my abdomen. But inside, I have really good sensation all the way down to my bladder. I have bladder sensation. And so I can feel period cramps, cramping when I have a stomach ache. But I don't typically have accidents even when I am sick. So I might have diarrhea type stool, but it's always generally when I do my bowel routine, it'll just be really watery stool. So it does react the same way. I just think because my gut motility is so much slower, it's not causing me to have, you know, multiple incidences or bouts of diarrhea during a day. So I'll poop in the morning, and then that's typically it. Sometimes when I've been really sick, I've done bowel routine in the evening just because I've had such a bad stomach ache, just because I've wanted everything to come out, and typically it will come out when I do a bowel routine. But generally nothing comes out unless I'm doing a bowel routine. That being said, I want to say, I don't know, probably like 5 or 7 years ago was the last time that I knew something was wrong, and I knew that I was like, you know, my bowels were acting funny. So I went on the toilet, and of course there was something there. So every once in a while, you can kind of feel when there's like a lot of cramping. And because I do a bowel routine, I know what it feels like when stool is kind of coming out or getting ready to come out, what that feeling is like lower down in my abdomen. And if I start to get that feeling during the day, generally I don't get too afraid because it sometimes just means it's a fart. But if I'm sick or my stomach is really weird, then sometimes, especially if smells start to come out, then I'm like, oh, okay, I better go sit on the toilet. So yeah, that's kind of what I do if I get sick and, you know, I can kind of tell there's something happening. The next question is, if you have an accident, how do you know? What sensations, if any, do you feel? And I guess I kind of answered this. If I don't necessarily know if I've had an accident unless the smell is there. But I can kind of tell when I'm going to poop. Like when I was first paralyzed, I would call it the tingles because I get goosebumps in my legs when I have to pee and when I have to poop really bad. And so it was just like a weird feeling to me. I didn't really know what it was. It wasn't something I ever had before my injury. But goosebumps are a weird thing that you get after your injury, especially when stuff's going on down there. So yeah, I would get that before I would have an accident. And it just took me a while to really put 2 and 2 together, what the sensations were, and then, you know, that it was going to be an accident. I didn't really have a good understanding of my body when I was first paralyzed, but now I do. And so I almost always know if there's something going on that's going to cause an accident or cause me to have a bowel movement. And so I catch it before it happens. But if I've had an accident, then, you know, nothing really alerts me other than the smell, which is an unfortunate, you know, symptom. Or an unfortunate, like, you know, red flag. But yeah, no, I don't really have any sensations. I have sensations before the accident happens, generally. But if I'm not getting any sensations, then it would just be the smell. But like I said, it hasn't happened in a really long time. So knock on wood. Those were all the questions that I got over the last couple weeks with the videos about pooping. And really the take-home message here is that everybody farts, everybody poops. It's totally normal. There's a million people, not a million people. There's a few people who keep putting comments under these videos saying like TMI, who cares? And ultimately those people can stop watching. And if you're watching this one, you've watched all the way through. You can stop watching because this stuff is important. I was terrified about this stuff when I was first paralyzed, and I think it's important to educate people who are curious about it so that it's not such a weird and uncomfortable subject for people with disabilities to try and, you know, manage and hide. It is important to talk about this stuff. Everybody does this stuff, and if you're one of the humans on this earth that, you know, is lucky enough to eat and not poop, then, you know, tell me your secret, because I would really love to be one of those humans. But I'm guessing there's nobody like that in this entire world. So anybody who thinks that these things are like TMI, well, you have other videos to watch. And anybody who is watching that is curious, I'm glad that you're watching, because you'll be able to have a better understanding of what somebody that's paralyzed experiences. It might just be my experience, but at least it's somebody's experience. And you'll be able to open up that conversation with somebody that you know and love or meet. And you'll be able to sort of be able to relate to them better because you've watched something that I've, you know, hopefully educated you on. And if you're newly injured and you're watching this because, you know, you are afraid of the pooping, farting, whatever situation, my advice to you is just learn to listen to your body. It takes a really long time to figure out the sensations that you've never had before. I had no idea that this goosebumps and tingly feeling below my level of injury meant that I was gonna shit my pants. It was not something that, you know, I had ever experienced before. And then when I started talking to other paralyzed people, they were the ones that were like, oh, that's the tingles. And I'm like, what? This is a normal thing? And then I didn't feel so weird about it. And then once I started to realize that it was actually like a signal from my body, then I started to be able to anticipate when these things were going to happen, unscheduled, you know, bowel movements were going to happen, and catch it before it could actually be an accident. Which is why I haven't had an accident in a very long time, because I can almost always catch it. And bowel accidents are not as like frequent. You don't leak, at least not me, an upper motor neuron neurogenic bowel. They're not as frequent as like a pee accident where you can just leak a little bit and not really know why or catch it, kind of thing. So yeah, these were all of the poop questions. I hope it was helpful to you. If you found value in this video, you can leave a comment and tell me what you found interesting. If you are paralyzed and you have other things that you think would add value in the comments, then please put those, your own experiences with what it feels like to fart, or how you know you're going to have an accident. Any of those things would be really great for somebody that stumbles across this video, especially newly injured people, to go and read and learn from. So yeah, take the time to do that if you feel inclined. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you back here on another video. Bye!